Like, hello everybody. Welcome to the second live session of this massive open online course on science, technology, and society. As you know, this is a 30-hour course spanning over a period of 12 weeks. You will be exposed to the philosophical, historical, and sociological aspects of science and technology. Technology, the way we have been looking at technology, is the medium through which human beings have been interacting with nature. When I say nature, it includes both natural as well as social phenomena. Thereby, I intend to widen and broaden the scope and ambit of discussion. When I say nature, please don't think that it is only natural phenomena, but our social relations of production also to undergo transformation. The way we try to look at technology is from the vantage point of historical sociology. Technology must be situated in its, in particular, in specific historical contexts. The way I'm trying to look at technology in this course, you will find that the way we try to situate philosophy prior to the 19th century, which was divided into two parts, namely natural philosophy and the moral philosophy. Natural philosophy, as you all know, is nothing but science in the present sense of the term. And as you all know, the term science was coined by William Webber in the 19th century. Prior to that, natural philosophy was known as science. Science was known as natural philosophy. Natural philosophers, or scientists in the present sense of the term, are engaged in epistemological questions, whereas moral philosophers are engaged in ethical questions. Epistemology, as you all know, epistemology is nothing but a body of knowledge or a theory of knowledge, precisely because of the kind of questions that epistemologists or proponents of natural philosophy are engaged in. I mean, what is knowledge? What counts as knowledge? How is knowledge generated? So on. And for this reason, epistemology is known as a body or theory of knowledge. On the other hand, ethics is known as a study of nature of conduct, precisely because of the kind of questions that moral philosophers are engaged in. These questions include what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, and so on. I mean, if I give you an example, that we have produced so much of medicines in the world, if the proponents of epistemology, they are engaged in this inquiry, then moral philosophers are engaged in questions like, even if we have produced numerous medicines in the world, whether all of us have access to these medicines or not, whether all of us can afford these medicines or not. Questions of accessibility, affordability, equity, inclusion, democracy, they became the parameters of moral philosophy or ethics in the present sense. In this course, my job here is not to look at or not to place natural philosophy on a higher pedestal vis-a-vis a moral philosophy, or in other words, my job here is not to place epistemology on a higher pedestal vis-a-vis ethics, or the other way around. my job here is um, integrate natural philosophy with moral philosophy, or putting it succinctly, uh, my job here is to integrate epistemology with ethics, or science with ethics. That's how I can look at the relationship between science, technology, and society. Technology. That's why I said technology is the medium through which we have been interacting with nature, and science is an inquiry into the nature and limits of a particular. When I say limits, by limits I do not mean limitations. By limits I mean under what limiting conditions science is practiced, pursued. Science may be an inquiry, science may be a method, science may be an institution, science may be an ideology. When I say science is an inquiry, the nature and limits of it. But when I say science as an institution, it involves norms and values. When I say science is a method, science historically has been historically from the 17th century till the 19th century, science has been science deployed at least two methods to produce knowledge. One, inductivism, and two, hypothesism. Inductivism is alternatively known as empiricism, and hypothesism is also known as rationalism. Empiricism is based on experience, whereas rationalism is based on reason. Empiricism was founded by Francis Bacon, whereas rationalism was founded by René Descartes. Empiricists followed the principle of induction, that is to make a transition from particular instance to arrive at generalization, starting from a piece of observation or a set of observations, and those observations require verification. Once verified, they become laws. On the contrary, rationalists suggest that no, observations are not presuppositionless. Science always begins only when we go beyond observations. Whereas inductivists or empiricists suggested that no, science begins with observations, remains at the level of observations, and ends with observations. Rationalists suggested that no, science begins only when we go beyond observations. That's how science becomes trans-observational in nature. Science always starts with a hypothesis that the tentative solution to a problem or hunch. And a hypothesis needs to be tested. If it is tested wrong, then it must be rejected. And if it is tested right, then it should be accepted. Okay. Then we have discussed how the first half of the 20th century was dominated by positivistic school of thought. Positivism emerged in specific socio-historical context. I mean, if you look at this, the way positivism emerged, you will find that positivism emerged in the context of the Industrial Revolution, critical thinking, rationality, reasoning capacity, and also interrogating the dominance of hitherto existing power structures, whether it is by religion or by the political institutions. I mean, positivism also must be examined in certain social and historical contexts. And the Second World War perhaps forced us to re-examine positivist construal of science, positivistic construal of economy, culture, and politics, whether we are going to go ahead with naturalism or the unity of scientific method. the kind of methods which are required to understand science, the same may not be applicable to understand our economy, our culture, our politics, or even science requires different methods. Thus, in the post-Second World War phase, we witnessed two very important methods propounded by Karl Popper and Thomas Kuhn. Popper said science doesn't start just with observation or a hypothesis. Rather, science starts with a problem or a question. Science always starts with a question or problem. One must identify a problem or a set of problems, and then we must provide a conjecture or a hypothesis, and the conjecture must undergo the process of systematic falsification. And if it is falsified, then it is subject to refutation, and if it is not falsified, then it is subject to corroboration. I mean, you must keep your hypothesis permanently tentative. If for inductivists or empiricists, the hallmarks of science lie in their certainty and breadth. For rationalists, they are novelty and depth. For positivists, it is systematic verification, and for Popper, it is systematic falsification. Popper perhaps was the first one who made a systematic attack on positivistic question of science. For Popper, what is the central question of philosophy? The central question of philosophy is the problem of cosmology. Now, what is the problem of cosmology? Now, the problem of cosmology is the problem of understanding our world, including ourselves as part of the world. That is, that he tried to take a more reflexive position. What is reflexivity? That it refers to the idea that we cannot simply observe society from or examine society from outside, because we are also involved in this. I cannot isolate, exclude myself from the phenomena that I understand. That's a more reflexive position, which also was one of the most important characteristics of critical modernist paradigm in sociology. Okay. That's what we are going to do with critical modernist paradigm in sociology, sociological perspectives, and modernity in the coming semester from January to April. But that is not my job right now. My job here is to look at how science has been deploying different methods. For Popper, again, he tried to look at, he tried to take cognizance of the rationalist question of science, and when he made a scathing attack on positivistic question of science, that when positivists suggested that no, that science is distinct from all areas of human activity or creativity because it possesses a method unique to it. That's how positivists tried to make a demarcation between science and non-science because of the kind of method. Positivists also argued that there is a single method common to all sciences irrespective of their subject matter, that is methodological monism, that the method of science is the method of induction, that the hallmark of science lies in the fact that all scientific statements must be systematically verifiable, that positivists also argued that observation leads to theory, whereas the converse is not true. Theory doesn't lead to observation. Rather, there is, in other words, there is a unilinear relationship between observation and theory. Putting it succinctly, theory is based on observations, whereas observations are theory independent. Positivists also argued that there must be a dichotomy between fact and value. Facts do not have any value judgment, whereas values do not have any factual content. I mean, if I say this is a table, this is a fact, and if I say this table looks beautiful, then I add value. Science, for positivists, not for all, science doesn't believe in values, rather science is only based on facts. Okay, that's how. And these tenets, central tenets of positivism, were criticized by Popper. That please don't think that science, if science has made any kind of progress, it is because of systematic verification. Rather, it is because of systematic falsification. And no observation is presuppositionless. Observations are not value neutral. Observations appear to us as well as value neutral or objective, but when I tend to reify observations, I feel that I come to understand that no observations are not value neutral, but they are not value free. Rather, they are very much value laden. And such value ladenness of, or value laden characteristic of observations was foregrounded by Popper, and he was more concerned about the context of justification by providing explanations, and then perhaps refused to speak anything about the context. Okay. On the contrary, what Kuhn suggested, that please don't think that science only starts with observation or hypothesis or a set of laws or research question. For Kuhn, every major science passes through at least two stages. One, paradigmatic stage, and the other, one pre-paradigmatic stage and the other is paradigmatic stage. Paradigm is nothing but a model. A paradigm formulates research questions, model questions. A paradigm not only formulates model questions, but also attempts to devise model methods to address those model questions. Not only that, it also provides model solutions to those model questions. Moreover, a paradigm provides examples, model examples, to demonstrate its suitability, the suitability of the specific paradigm. When I tend to look at these categories, when Kuhn suggested that every major science passes through two stages, one pre-paradigmatic stage, and the second one, the next one is paradigmatic stage. The transition from pre-paradigmatic stage to paradigmatic stage characterizes or is characterized by a transition from divergence of opinions, a convergence of opinions. That's how astronomy was the first discipline which would forge a paradigm, because if I have to give you an example, that you look at how Ptolemy was replaced by Copernicus and then justified by Galileo. Then physics entered the paradigmatic stage. Then biology entered the paradigmatic stage. Precisely because in these disciplines, the practitioners of those disciplines could forge some kind of a paradigm on the basis of consensus. They could forge, they could build some kind of consensus. And for Kuhn, humanities and social sciences, creative art, creative areas like art, literature, philosophy, music, dance forms, perhaps they cannot enter the paradigmatic stage because there is no consensus in these paradigms. I always say that it is not a very important question whether it is possible to forge a paradigm in humanities and social sciences. I always say that it is not desirable to forge a consensus in humanities and social sciences. Otherwise, we will lose out on the ethos of multiculturalism, pluralism. We must look at the plurality of knowledge systems, plurality of sciences, right? Because science has never grown from only one source, or social sciences have never been produced only through one source. Multiple sources contributed to the growth of our knowledge systems. And in such circumstances, once science enters, science could forge some kind of paradigm, then its practitioners, they are engaged in normal science or norm-bound science, which is a puzzle-solving activity, day-to-day research activity, so on. And while carrying out normal science, normal science is a tradition-bound activity. And when the practitioners of a particular paradigm, they are engaged in normal scientific tradition, they also often encounter anomalies. Anomalies refer to unanticipated or unexpected occurrences or happenings. And once we encounter anomalies within a specific paradigm, then science enters crisis. Science enters the stage of crisis. And once science is crisis-ridden, then it hunts for a new paradigm mediated by scientific revolutions. Revolutionary science. If normal science is a tradition-bound activity, then revolutionary science is a tradition-shattering activity. And please don't think that it is a cyclical process or something like that. Kuhn always suggested that it is very much a dialectical process. Okay, and that's how we arrive at new paradigm. Then we have discussed Feyerabend's against method. Now, how outline of an anarchistic theory of knowledge. How whether inductivists or rationalists or positivists or Popper or Kuhn, according to Feyerabend, they always followed at least two conditions to justify their claims. One is consistency condition and the other correspondence condition, which is considered the law and order philosophy of science for Feyerabend. And he suggests that no, we must get rid of these two conditions, and otherwise science cannot make progress. Okay. Then when I said science as an institution, it's a combination of norms and values, institutional imperatives of science, ethos of science, and how Merton delineated four ethos of science. Ethos of science refers to effectively grown complex of values and norms, which is held to be binding on the man of science, on the practitioner of science. And he tried to provide four characteristics or four ethos of science, namely Goodose, popularly known as Goodose, communism, universalism, disinterestedness, and organized skepticism. Then we are also going to discuss inequalities in science in terms of rewards and recognitions. Then social construction of technological systems, whether artifacts have political properties or not. How do I examine the neutrality of a specific technology? The technologies are neutral or not? The neutrality of the specific technology can be examined through the ways in which a specific technology has been designed and controlled. That's how design and control become the two bases or two grounding principles through which I want to examine the neutrality of a specific technology. We're going to discuss social setting of technology, social construction of technology, and so on. And we'll also draw in science policies in India, starting from 1958 scientific policy resolution, technology policy statement of 1983, then science and technology policy of 2003, and science, technology, and innovation policy, recent policy. Okay. A question which has been raised here, what I can see that is mentioned, that do science and religion necessarily go against each other? Decline of church in Europe coincided with rise in rationalism and scientific thinking. Western nations steered towards secularism. On the other hand, Iran today shows a different view. Iran is a theocratic nation which, however, pursues science to advance its theocratic nationalist ambitions. How to understand this? You see, please don't think that I'm trying to provide some kind of a dichotomy between, or binary between, science and religion. What I said, what I have been saying, trying to make sense of this debate between science on the one hand and religion on the other, that science as a method of inquiry, science always tries to provide explanation. Science always attempts to move beyond, at least in the context of Europe, it tried to move beyond feudal mode of production by embracing capitalism, capitalist mode of production. This kind of, if I look at theocratic nationalist ambitions and so on, if I look at Auguste Comte's law of stages, Auguste Comte, who is considered the father of sociology, founder of discipline, he said that every society passes through three stages. One, theological stage. Two, metaphysical stage. Three, positivistic or scientific stage. The theological stage believes in supernatural forces. The metaphysical stage believes in natural forces, nature. And the positivistic or scientific stage believes in not attributing everything to supernatural forces or nature, but to human action. Okay. You can say, if I say theological, when Comte said theological stage, metaphysical stage, positivistic or scientific stage, one can say Renaissance, Reformation and Enlightenment. One can say slavery, feudalism, capitalism, and same thing can work. If I give you an example, how do I branch them out? If I say madness, The proponents of the theological stage consider madness as a divine grace. The proponents of the metaphysical stage treat madness as a criminal threat. Whereas the proponents of the positivistic or scientific stage or the age of enlightenment or the age of capitalism, they suggest that no, madness cannot be or can no longer be considered a divine creation or a criminal threat. Rather, madness is just a medical condition. If I say that if I pose this question, who has created us? The proponents of the theological stage, they suggested that no, God has created us. Because it believed in, theological stage believes in supernatural forces. The proponents of the metaphysical stage would say that no, nature has created us. Because the proponents of the metaphysical stage, they challenged the existence of supernatural forces. They said that we all are byproducts of nature. But as they couldn't provide any scientific explanation for this, they said that no, nature has created us. That's how they tried to attribute godly status to nature. That's how we started worshipping nature, worshipping plants, trees, animals, wherever. But the positivistic or scientific stage, the proponents of the Enlightenment tradition, the proponents of capitalism, they dismantled these claims and they said that no, we are not byproducts of supernatural forces or natural forces. We started believing in Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species, evolution of species, right? One must look at this how religion, not simply as religion, but rather religious orthodoxy of Curantism, they were challenged by science. Okay. That's why I always say I'm really impressed by this question that somebody, Mr. Kranti Kiran, has posed this question that for example, in Iran, it shows a different view that it is a theocratic nation which, however, pursues science to advance its theocratic nationalist ambitions. See, science, that's why I always say that India was, for example, India was the first country in the world to formulate its science policy. All other countries, they followed India. But perhaps, what I can notice that where we missed the bus, I don't know. Perhaps India, perhaps as a nation, we have been immensely successful in building top-notch scientific institutions. But we have to re-examine whether we have been able to develop scientific temper. There is a gap between building scientific institutions in the country and building scientific temper in the country. I think one must look at different countries' experiences while addressing the debate between science on the one hand and religion on the other. If there is, I'm sure, I hope all of you are attending classes, listening to the lectures. If you face any kind of problem, or if you have any doubt, you can question me here itself, or else you can write to us. We have a very dedicated team to look into these questions. I also help them in answering those questions. If you have any problem, you can pose questions here already, or else write to us. We'll definitely get back to you as soon as possible. Is there any question? Huh? Or else I'm sure, I hope all of you are attending classes, and we'll have one more live session in the last week of September or first week of October. We can also ask questions there at that time. But don't skip any exam weekly assignments. I'm sure all of you are very good students, very good teachers in different institutions, not simply in India, but also abroad. I hope all of you do well in not simply in this course, but also in life. Thank you.